On this day in history, May 20th, 1217, the Second Battle of Lincoln is fought near Lincoln, England, resulting in the defeat of Prince Louis of France by William Marshal, 1st Earl of Pembroke. Included in the following is an excerpt from the 1944 edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica going over the history of Lincoln. The British London, which according to the early geographer Ptolemy was the chief town of the Corytani, was probably the nucleus of the Roman town of Linden. This was at first a Roman legionary fortress, and on the removal of the troops northward was converted into a municipality with the title of Colonia. Important structural remains attest the rank and importance of the place, which, however, did not attain a very great size. Its bishop attended the Council of Arles in 314, and Lincoln, Lindocolina, Lincoln, Nicole, is mentioned in the itinerary of Antonius written about 320. Although said to have been captured by Hengist in 475 and recovered by Ambrosius in the following year, the next authentic mention of the city is Bede's record that Paulinus preached in Lindsey in 628 and built a stone church at Lincoln in which he consecrated Honorius, Archbishop of Canterbury. The Danes in 877 established themselves at Lincoln, which was one of the 5 boroughs recovered by King Edmund in 941. A mint existed here in the reign of Alfred and was maintained until the reign of Edward I. At the time of Doomsday, Lincoln was governed by 12 lawmen, relics of Danish rule, each with hereditable franchises of sack and salk. The strength of the position of the castle built by William I in 1068 brought much fighting on Lincoln. In 1141, King Stephen regained both castle and city from the Empress Maud, but was attacked and captured in the same year at the Joust of Lincoln. In 1144, he besieged the castle held by the Earl of Chester and recovered it as a pledge in 1146. In 1191, it was held by Gerald de Camville for Prince John. In 1210, it stood a siege by the partisans of the French Prince Louis, who were defeated at the battle called Lincoln Fair on May 19th, 1217. Granted by Henry III to William Longsby, Earl of Salisbury, in 1224, the castle descended by the marriage of his descendant Alice to Thomas Plantagenet, and became part of the Duchy of Lancaster. In 1157, Henry II gave the citizens their first charter, granting them the city at a fee-farm rent and all the liberties which they had under William II. In 1200, the citizens obtained release from all but pleas of the crown without the walls, and pleas of external tenure, and were given the pleas of the crown within the city according to the customs of the city of London, on which those of Lincoln were modeled. The charter also gave them quittance of toll and lastage throughout the kingdom, and of certain other dues. The mayor's office was abolished by Henry III and by Edward I in 1290, though restored by the charter of 1300. In 1275, the citizens claimed the return of writs, assize of bread and ale, and other royal rights. And in 1301, Edward I, when confirming the previous charters, gave them quittance of murage, pannage, pottage, and other dues. The mayor and citizens were given criminal jurisdiction in 1327, when the Burgmanmat was ordered to hear all local pleas which led to friction with the judges of assize. The city became a separate county by the charter of 1409, when it was decreed that the bailiffs should henceforth be sheriffs and the mayor the king's exchequer, and the mayor and sheriffs, with 4 others, justices of the peace, with defined jurisdiction. As the result of numerous complaints of the inability to pay the fee-farm rent of £180, Edward IV enlarged the bounds of the city in 1466, while Henry VIII in 1546 gave the citizens 4 advowsons, and possibly also in consequence of the declining trade, the city markets were made free of tolls in 1554. Incorporated by Charles I in 1628 under a common council with 13 aldermen, 4 coroners, and other officers, Lincoln surrendered its charters in 1684, but the first charter was restored after the Revolution, and was in force till 1834. Parliaments were held at Lincoln in 1301, 1316, and 1328, and the city returned 2 burgesses from 1295 to 1885, when it lost 1 member. After the 13th century, the chief interests of Lincoln were ecclesiastical and commercial. As early as 1103, Odoricus declared that a rich citizen of Lincoln kept the treasure of King Magnus of Norway, supplying him with all he required. And there is other evidence of intercourse with Scandinavia. There was an important Jewish colony, Aaron of Lincoln being one of the most influential financiers in the kingdom between 1166 and 1186, made a staple of wool, leather, and skins in 1291, famous for its scarlet cloth in the 13th century. Lincoln had a few years of great prosperity, but with the transference of the staple to Boston early in the reign of Edward III, its trade began to decrease. The craft guilds remained important until after the Reformation, a pageant still being held in 1566. The fair now held during the last whole week of April seems to be identical with that granted by Charles II in 1684. Edward III authorized a fair from St. Botolph's Day to the feast of Saints Peter and Paul in 1327. Henry IV granted one in 1409 for 15 days before the feast of the deposition of St. Hugh, and William III gave one for the first Wednesday in September 1696.